10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 464. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 464 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Hope you're all doing well out there. We are continuing yet another episode on the great Charlie Parker composition, Blues for Alice. We've come quite a long way, and I'm sure a lot of you have guessed what we're going to do this week. We have arrived at playing full choruses of quarter notes over this progression. And I want to talk a little bit about what I think is maybe one of the most beneficial things that you can do, and that's this step. So remember, we started this month by doing one note per chord, which gave us a mix of whole notes and half notes. Then we moved into 2 notes per chord, which did give us a mix of some quarter notes, but again, some half notes. Now we're going to ditch the idea of a certain number of notes per chord, and we're just going to play quarter notes over the entire form. Now, a couple of things. First thing is, a lot of you, and I've gotten this comment when I've given this assignment to students in the past, they'll go, oh, you want me to walk a bass line, but I don't. And I want to talk about the differences between walking a bass line and what I would like you to do. So let me first start by saying that learning to walk a bass line and working on walking a bass line is a fantastic thing to do. It's just not what we're after here. So let's think about what a bass line is. Yes, in a lot of jazz, particularly swing music, the bass line is comprised of mostly quarter notes, right? That's called walking bass, is primarily quarter note based. But let's think about the role of a bass player and what makes walking a bass line totally different. Walking a bass line is all about clarity, right? So whenever the chord changes, in general, the bass player is going to be playing the root, and your job when you're coming up with a bass line is to provide a foundation for everybody else in the band, right? This assignment is totally different. In fact, I don't need you to be providing a foundation for anything. What you should be doing as you develop this ability to play quarter notes through the entire form is you should actually be doing the opposite of that. You should be exploring the colors that you can find and the different paths you can take through these changes using quarter notes. So yes, we are primarily going to be using the same rhythm that a bass player would be using, but our approach to this is totally and completely different. And actually, I shouldn't say totally and completely different. It's really what I just said. We don't have any responsibility to provide a foundation, to really make sure that the rest of the band is hearing that root motion, all that kind of stuff. That's what we don't have a responsibility to do. Different things like voice leading and really making sure that you're staying with the harmony. Yeah, we do want to do that, but it's just totally different than a bass line. So that was the first thing that I wanted to say. Let me do this right now. I'm going to play a little recording of myself playing a couple choruses of quarter notes, just so you can wrap your ears and your brain around what you're going to be working on this week. And then we'll talk about a couple of other concerns. All right, so now you just have it in your ears what we're doing. I mean, it's not too hard to conceive of what a full chorus of quarter notes would be, but I wanted to play it for you anyways, because it does bring up a couple of things. So first of all, for all my wind players out there, we have the disadvantage that we need oxygen, right? So eventually you're gonna need to breathe. And if you didn't catch it in that recording, basically what I try to do is when I start thinking, okay, I need a breath, I just try to make it to the next downbeat. And then I allow myself to play that downbeat and sort of take 3 beats off, grab a breath, then start playing again. So that's what I would suggest, is however long you can make it, just make it to that next downbeat, grab a breath, keep going until you run out of air again. But make sure you're taking big breaths, because we want to make it as far as we possibly can. Now, the other thing is the issue of repeated notes. I have no problem with you playing repeated notes, especially once you first start. That's totally fine. As long as you're not playing 4 repeated notes in every measure, I think you're fine to play repeated notes. So don't get hung up on that. I actually love the sound of repeated notes. And when we free ourselves up from any kind of exercise and we're just improvising, I love playing repeated notes, and lots of people do. So don't worry about it. You can do it. Just make sure that you're not exclusively doing repeated notes. Okay, so those are the 2 things in the recording that you probably heard and you might have had a question about. But I want to end this episode by talking about just how valuable this actually is. Because if you think about the possibilities now that we're playing quarter notes, it is absolutely unbelievable, all of the different paths that we can find through these chord changes. And if you are somebody that's already soloing over Blues for Alice, but you're looking for some ways to get better at it, this playing a bunch of choruses using just quarter notes is guaranteed to give you brand new ideas and show you some different sounds and different paths through the changes. Because let's think about this. Last week, we were doing quarter notes over any of those measures that had 2 chords in it. But now we're doing quarter notes over these big, long measures of just 1 chord. And we have to figure out a way to play 4 notes over 1 chord in a way that sounds good. And one thing that will become immediately evident to you, which I think is a really, really good thing, is you'll figure out what you rely on in terms of, basically everything, right? So you'll figure out where your tendencies are on which notes you start on a chord. You start your phrases simply because of the fact they're accessible, right? You will also start to realize some of your tendencies in the direction that you play. I play descending all the time, but I have a lot of trouble ascending through these chord changes. I don't think I actually ever play anything ascending. That could be a huge change in your playing, right? You will also realize if you have a tendency, again, over certain changes, because that's what this exposes, is oh geez, when I get to this part of the tune, I always play the same thing. You will also start to realize that sometimes over certain changes, you always play vertically, right? You always arpeggiate because that's what you're comfortable with doing. And over other places, you always play in a little bit more of a horizontal way. You play with narrow intervals. You play scale-based stuff. And this is a great way, as you go through many, many, many choruses, the pressure is not on to come up with something completely original and play a killing solo. The idea is just that you can play fluent choruses of quarter notes without getting totally hung up, right? What'll happen is your tendencies will start to really come to the surface, and you can decide on whether they're good or bad, or you don't like the way you handle certain things, or you do like the way you handle certain things. You could double down on it. If you don't like the way, oh geez, I'm really limited, I can only play arpeggios over this set of chords. Wait, what is sort of the scale-based thing I could do over this? Do I even know how to do that? It'll really confront you with this stuff, and these are great things to be confronted with. So this is being the second to last episode in this series, I really, really want you to try to be able to get through a couple, 3, 4 choruses just using quarter notes. Because in the last episode, I'm going to give you sort of the next step that's going to free you up into, ultimately playing whatever the heck you want over this tune and really start to craft some awesome solos. But these exercises are such important steps along the way to getting to that point and really feeling like you can say something. And I know I'm going to hear from some of you that actually work on this. I know I'm going to get emails from you that say, wow, I actually did it. I got to the point where I could play 3 choruses of straight up quarter notes, and it has opened up my world in terms of what I can play melodically over this. Okay? So be one of those people, and I can't wait to hear from you. So the assignment is simple. Get on those quarter notes. I'm going to give the Patreon members, as usual, some trading choruses tracks where we can go back and forth, and then some trading fours tracks where we can bounce back and forth a little bit more rapidly. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, you're new to the show, this is the way we support the podcast. We don't do any ads. We just rely on jazz students like you that are getting something out of the show to support us in the form of a small monthly donation. We do that through the Patreon platform. You can find out what it costs and what you get by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, or going to patreon.com and searching for the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson podcast. You get signed up, you get instant access to the materials from this episode and every episode that we have ever done. Thank you to everybody that's over there supporting us. We could definitely not do this without you. All right, everybody, get to work, and I will see you next week with the final episode in this series. Have a good one. Bye.